Hello, math students. This is Mr. McAllen, and today we're going to be going over some concepts of coming up with equations of line. And the objectives are students should be able to use the concepts of slope and y-intercept to graph and write linear equations in two variables. And the variables we're going to be using are going to be y and x, just like typical math equations. And our first example is going to focus on finding slope. The second example is going to focus on coming up with equation of a line using point slope form. The third example is going to use slope intercept form. So let me just put the forms up here. So slope is equal to y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1 if you like the equations. Point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. The third one is slope intercept form, which is most commonly used. Y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to show you how to use that and solve for those values. And the last one is we want to talk about different forms of equations of lines. We have, this is point slope. There's slope intercept. And a third form is called the general form. So we're going to talk about that and how we find that. So let's get off onto the first question. And that is, if I give you 2 points, can you find the slope? So the traditional way to do this is to just plug into the equation. Be consistent. This will be x1, y1. So in this equation here, it says find the slope of a line that passes through the points -2, 4 and 3, 8. So this should be something relatively simple to do. And let me just clean up the screen here. So for the slope, if you're going to calculate algebraically, you would say 8 minus 4, y2 minus y1, over 3 minus -2, x2 and x1. You would then have 4 in the numerator over 5, and you have a 4 on 5 slope. Now, if you do it by graphing, that's why I left this graph paper here, you go to -2, 4, and you would have 3, 8. And I like this method better because it's more visual. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I just don't want to make a mistake on the counting. 3, 8. And then if I draw a slope triangle, that will tell me also that I have a 4 on 5 positive slope. So that's more visual, easier for me to see and explain. So now we move on to our next problem. This is an extension to what we just did. We have 2 points. We don't know the x-coordinate of the first point, but we know the x and y coordinate for the second point, and we get a slope of 3. So we basically set up the same sort of thing. We're basically making an algebraic equation out of this. So we have, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We put those values in. We have 8 minus 2 over 5. This is x1 over, this is x2, I'm sorry. So we have 5 minus an unknown value. Let's put x, and that's got to equal the slope of 3. So what we have to do is figure out 3 equals, we have 6 over 5 minus x. So I've got to figure out what x has to be to make this work. So you can either guess and check, you could cross multiply. So I'm going to just guess and check. I'm going to say, well, let me try, if x equals 1, I get a slope of 6 over 4. If x equals 2, I get a slope of 6 over 3. If x equals 3, I get a slope of 6 over 2, and that's what I need. So if x equals 3, I get the right slope value. So the way you would solve this, if you want to solve it, is you have 3 equals 6 over 5 minus x. You would cross multiply. 3 times 5 minus x equals 6. You would distribute. 15 minus 3x equals 6. You would subtract 15, and that would be negative 9, and then you would divide by -3, and you would get 3. So that just confirms what I said over here by using guess and check. Sometimes guessing and checking might get to the answer quicker. So now let's look at another example. In this example, we want to use point slope form. So what they have is they give us they say a line passes through a point, and we have a slope. And all they want us to do is put this equation in point slope form. And this is probably one of the easiest questions we'll ever have in the year. So I hope I don't mess it up. So we just have y minus 6 for the y1 equals -2 times x minus 3. And this is point slope form. And it's called that because you could see evidence of the point and you could see the slope. And that's why they call it point slope form. Moving along, using slope intercept form. All right, so on this equation, we know the slope, and we have the x1 and the y1 value for a point that we have. So what we basically can do is we can plug in for what we have. So you have 3x plus b equals y. And now we need to solve for the intercept. So this is a trick that you could do. You know an x and a y value that work for that. So if you plug them in, I'll just put them in red. You have 5 for the y value. We have 3 times -2 for the x value. And we have plus b. So we solve outright for the b value. And we just add 6 to both sides. So b is going to equal 11. So then we have y equals 3x plus 11. Now what's always good to do is to check with those points and make sure they work. So y equals 3 times -2 plus 11. Does that give us a 5 value for our y value? And it does. Y equals 5, so our answer checks out. Now we're going to discuss something, and in any of these last problems that we did, if you feel like you should take notes, you should definitely take notes on what you're not quite sure of. This is all review for pre-calculus. So what you should do is I'm going to pause the video, and I'd like you to write down these 3 different forms, and then we're going to talk about finding the general form in this next problem. So let me pause the video, and you should pause it also, so that you can copy down this information. Okay, well, we're back, and what we want to do is we want to come up with a general form, as example 4 says, of an equation of a line that passes through 2 points. So whenever you see this, my strategy is to do this. It's to first find point slope form, and turn it into a general form. And this is by using common multiples. And so what we're going to do is, one of the first things we want to do is we want to fill in the blanks on a slope intercept form. So the first thing we need is we need the slope. So that's going to be 10 minus -2, because that's y2 and that's y1. 6 minus 3, so our slope is going to be 12 over 3, which will be a 4 slope. So that's nice. We got a nice round number. And now I just have to plug an x value and a y value in. So I'm going to use the first coordinate, 3 comma -2. And when I put it in, I've got y minus -2 equals 4 times x minus 3. That's in point slope form. Now to get it to general forms, this is point slope. To get it to general, I just have to distribute and move terms around. So I'll distribute y plus 2 equals 4x minus 12. And then I'll move terms around. So I have negative 4x plus y, because I subtract the 4x. I'm going to subtract 2. Actually, general form says everything's got to be all on one side. So this is going to be plus 14 equals 0. And remember, general form says ax plus by plus c has got to equal 0. Now the deal with this is a cannot be negative. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply everything by negative 1, and that'll make our general form 4x minus y minus 14 equals 0. And that should be the general form for our line. I hope this video helps, and we'll be practicing more problems like this on Monday, or well, the next day in class. So make sure you answer all the questions in the form so we can continue this on our next day.